Hello and welcome to Today in Space. We're back for another episode, and this week we're going to be talking about AI. Specifically, I'm going to be sharing my thoughts on AI, artificial intelligence, and specifically some tools that I actually use because I want to provide some metrics to show you how it's actually helping me, so it's not all this big marketing speak about what AI can do for you. And really, for me, it's about who I am as an individual and how AI can help me enable more time for my creativity and stay more in the creative zone. My hope here is to share some fundamental beliefs in why I would pick and use an AI. I'm not just going to use every AI under the sun, and give you some idea of what I think about before I start using an AI. Hopefully it helps you look at AI more as a tool you could use instead of some enemy that you'll never touch. And so we'll close out with how I think people should use it and then when not to use AI. And, maybe we'll sneak in a little bit about what I think about AI in our future of space. That's our episode. Let's dive in. Thank you for joining us. This is Today in Space. So let's start with a little bit about what I think about AI, and so that way you have an idea of where I'm coming from. So for me, AI enters this realm that's very familiar with us in the podcast, where it's new and it's accelerated in progress so fast that so many people don't know enough about it. And so it looks like magic. While we love things like Harry Potter, and it would be really cool if magic existed, the last thing we want to do is for something scientific to be magic, because that's exactly when people start lying about it. So for us, we wanted to dive into AI and understand it better because we wanted to be able to explain it. So this has kind of been a long time coming, at least for us, but we wanted to understand AI at a base level so that we could get into it. Now, AI has been around in my discussion for a long time because Elon Musk was a very, very strong proponent against pushing AI back in the day. He gave up on that fight, and then now obviously with Tesla and the Tesla bots and everything that they're doing with their AI systems, he has quickly become an expert in it. For me, I really started jumping into a lot of these tools. ChatGPT, when it first came out, I was fascinated by it, but it wasn't something I really felt like I found a use for. And then Gary Vee was talking about it, and that's kind of where I jumped in and finally was like, all right, we've got to figure this out. Now, for years now here on the podcast, we've been trying to figure out ways to free up time from all of the effort that it takes to put together an episode and to make it scientifically accurate, to throw in some personality, and to make it a conversation, right? The thing that we try to have this be is engaging. When we first started, podcasts were basically like TED Talks or like lectures, and it's really grown a lot. I mean, if you go back to one of those episodes, please don't. But if you do, we were trying to figure out how to communicate science and make it interesting and engaging. So I really would have loved to have been able to have hired, someone who could help me edit, because who really wants to listen to yourself over and over again constantly and then getting critical about how you sound and what you say? It's a little crazy. But, if you don't have the money for it, so many podcasts have started and stopped because their expenses outgrew what they could actually bring in. And I mean, how many episodes went under 100? How many podcast went under 100 episodes, right? So I adjusted and found a way to do the podcast in a format that would be engaging, listenable, watchable, but it was also something I could do while working a full-time job and having a life, right? So for us, we always were looking for that partner to add on to the team here. We didn't have enough coming in to hire a human. So eventually, AI ended up becoming a partner for us. Something. I guess we'll figure that out in the future here. We have gained so much time back. And so for us, how we see AI is right now, how it exists. Right now, AI is there to help enable individuals to do more than they're capable of doing themselves, specifically by adding in tools, AI tools, that are able not to replace the human being, but to replace the tasks that the human being is hindered by. So for me, the tools that we're going to talk about in just a second are all things that I've used because they are helpful to what I am doing. And I know a lot of people who are super into AI. The first thing that we talk about whenever they know that I'm into space and podcasting is you should record your voice, make a prompt, and then it can do the entire podcast for you. You never have to record another episode and the podcast would just reveal itself. You could just sit back and do something else. Now, to us, that is the least interesting thing I would want to do. This podcast is a creative endeavor. It's a human endeavor. And while I love the fact that is even kind of possible today, that doesn't interest me at all. So unlike many of the AI purists and enthusiasts, the way that I use AI is literally to enable myself to do more by giving the AI or finding AI that's doing the things that are either taking up my time, that are preventing me from getting to this point, or tools that free me up to spend more time in that creative zone. Because for us, flow state, whatever you want it to be called, that is the thing we're looking to access. And look, I work a full-time job as an engineer, so it's not like I have this entire day to myself. I have to be very disciplined and very efficient in the time that I have to do the things that I'm going to do. So AI has returned to me so much of my week that it has quite literally changed my life. So for me, I am excited to share this, but it will not be the typical marketing point of, hey, look at all the amazing things that AI can do. I do not think that AI should be in everything. There's definitely the chance that it could take a lot of jobs and stuff like that, but that's why it's so important at this junction point in where AI is that you understand it enough to realize that one day there may be an AI that may help you. And this, introducing that and understanding that, could be the difference between you having a job or not having a job, but more specifically, potentially having a great life versus having a life in which you're unable to think for yourself, do for yourself, your self-reliance goes out the door. So we are anti-losing your self-reliance. We are anti-losing your humanity. We want to use AI tools that help enable that and help you become an even bigger part of the human species here. So we're looking for AI partners in our humanity, not to replace it. I guess we could have saved a lot of time by just saying that, but that's the story. That's how we think about it. One of the things about this human endeavor, about what we're trying to do here with AI, is about being a human being, right? And it's really about accessing the things that are the most important to us. And for us, it's focus. We have a very long week, and as a engineer, and then we have to get back to the grind and get back into it. That's not easy. And for us, having AI tools definitely help us free up time, but more specifically, we use tools just like Magic Mind to help us stay focused. Magic Mind is a productivity shot. It's something we've been using for a while now, and you can tell in the calm demeanor, the whole attitude of how we're talking about things. My energy is in that spot for the podcast, and that's due to Magic Mind. So, for me, I have to be able to be on when I have the time to actually do the podcast or generate the next episode's ideas or put together all the little things, even run the AI that we have as tools here to get an episode out. For us, accessing that creative state is super important. Before the AI tools, we were using Magic Mind as a way to stay together as we did menial tasks that were just so boring and they just take you out of that creative zone. And Magic Mind was helping us get back into that, with the adaptogens, the vitamins, everything that's involved in Magic Mind in this one simple productivity shot. That helps us go to the next level. And now with these AI tools, we've freed up even more time to enter the flow state at longer times. But more importantly, for me, Magic Mind has been about reducing stress as well. I definitely have dealt with anxiety and stress, and then trying to be disciplined and locked in after work. I mean, that was just a kind of a nightmare scenario for a few years there. And I can't thank Magic Mind enough. It's a great tool for us, a human tool, on the other side of what we're talking about this episode. And so I can't recommend it enough. If you want to check it out and join us as well on the journey, go to magicmind.com, use the code TODAY20, and you're able to get a discount on the single item, but more specifically off your subscription. So if you use TODAY20, our code, on your subscription, you get up to 48% off your Magic Mind purchase. And if you want to learn more, go to magicmind.com. Check out what's involved. These are doctors that have put together this blend, and they're continually adapting it to and making it better. But you won't know that until you give it a try. So go to magicmind.com/today20. Get a huge discount on your first purchase here. Let us know what you think. Now, let's dive into the AI tools that we're using here so we can give you some real-world examples of what tools we use and how they help us. First up is ChatGPT. Yes, probably the most famous AI out there. I use ChatGPT as my co-pilot. When I'm brainstorming for episodes, I've started actually trying to build a voice called Skye, S-K-Y-E, that delivers me news resources on space weekly, and it produces a small little script in the tone that matches this podcast. And that was just a fun experience to play with AI, to work with ChatGPT, to generate this. And I've also trained it to produce sources for anything that Skye generates for the week. I was also able to have it help me generate an episode template from an idea that I have, right? If I'm just not good at writing. I struggled with that growing up for sure. For me, it's like that first process of getting writing and just the structure of writing so that you can then be creative and add your ideas. I was terrible at that. So for me, I've done a lot of engineering, right, and writing that's involved in there, which is way more writing than I thought I would ever have to do as an engineer. That's why I went into STEM, was to get away from writing. But I also do a lot of writing for the podcast. So that's very specific writing. It's not like I necessarily know how to generate a writing structure. So it would take me hours. And I would get to the point where I would be so exhausted or burnt out from building the template or thinking about how to build the template. Just hours of wasted time before I could get creative. And then it would be a while before I would get creative, get into the creative zone again, to then get back to this template that was the bane of my existence. So for this episode, I took a spoonful of my own advice and I made this template, and it took literally seconds. So literally now, if I'm too busy, too tired, too stressed, haven't had my magic mind, it doesn't matter because this was already generated. Now my job as a human being is to get myself into that creative state to jump back in. And it fits my life perfectly, right? We've talked about I've got these moments, these micro moments throughout my week to execute. Letting AI build that structure so that I can fill it in and make it what I want it to be has been, it's just a great example of, number one, taking my own advice and following through on it. But it's just such a great example of what AI can do for you. Next up is Otter.ai. Now, Otter.ai was the first AI tool that I used because at work I was making these technical training videos, which is something that I've done in my career many times in many different industries, is built up training programs. And you always need to move fast for that because the one thing everyone thinks is important is training and education, but the last thing anyone ever wants to spend money on is training and education. So when you have the funding, you go for it. When you do that, you have to go fast. For me, I would sit down with the subject matter experts. We would record them doing, their draft live version of a training, and then we would run the transcript through Otter.ai, and we'd get a generated transcription of topics. We'd had timestamps for ideas. And then we can go through and we could strip it down to the extra parts, to the root of whatever we were trying to get to, and make it something good for training. And then I realized that you can just run your episodes through this, your YouTube videos, I was spending all this time generating titles and figuring out what we were talking about on the episode in a big picture manner. And then timestamps for the episodes. That became important in the last few years for YouTube. And to edit the episode and then go back, because I just didn't have the focus to mark the times all my way through. Plus, after I edited, I would have to go back and double check those. So it was just this extra part that was just making me not like what I was doing. And then Auto.ai, I would throw the episode through there. And then the timestamps help people find the parts of the episode that they're actually interested in, which is totally fine. Jump around. I don't care. As long as you find something that's interesting to you and I don't lose you in the first few seconds. I think that's a huge add. Another value add is when I interview someone for the podcast. For me, it gives me a rough percentage. For anyone, when you run it through, it gives you a rough percentage if there's multiple speakers of how long, what's the percentage of the amount of time that person spoke. And for me, that's actually been a really good guiding number for how well that episode went or how good was that interview. And for the episodes where I speak to somebody else, I don't want to speak that much. So to me, it's like I'm trying to get out these stories and messages from people that are natural to them, that they could talk for hours about. So if I speak for less than 35% of the time, to me, that feels like it was a good interview. I did justice to the person on the other side of the screen and the other side of the microphone. And to me, I mean, we talk so much on the episode. I'm sure people are fine not listening to me another time. But to me, that one metric, which was not something I expected or even got the tool for, that was really important. And then, of course, just ideas, right? And topics that helps with hashtags, that helps with just in general. Like you can go to the episode in the description and just look at the topics. And if it's something you like, you jump in. It's a simple value add, and that's all thanks to AI. And last up, the final AI tool that we're using right now, Opus.pro. Now, Opus.pro is the latest AI tool edition, and it's probably the one that saves me the most amount of time in producing social media clips and promoting the show in general and just getting the word out there. I edit basically my whole episode, and then I run it through Opus to find potentially viral clips, but also to add captions and frame cuts to our interviews and episodes in a vertical video format. My brother, Nick Orfanos, the mind and body behind Weebs and Weights, was the person that first introduced me to it. And honestly, it's been life-changing, literally. I was saying in the beginning that we've wanted to hire somebody to help, the larger part of the creative process. And with Opus, it's been like hiring an editor. They're just AI, and you get, roughly 10 clips every time you run a video, and the tools keep on getting better. I mean, since we started using this in the last year, has come a very, very far way. Now, most of the things that were features, but they were kind of locked in, you couldn't really move the captions where you wanted to, or other subtle things. It's gone in a great direction where now I'm editing completely these clips in Opus Pro, because you can do that. It's through a browser, right? So you don't need to download a program or need an app. Literally in the browser, you can do it. You can only edit in the desktop version of it. But, that is a huge change for me. I can't tell you how much time, well, we're going to tell you in just a second, but there is so much time wasted in the process of cutting and editing that full episode down after the fact. And it took so much discipline just to get to the point where I would spend my time doing the full episode to then get to the point where I would do clips and edits. And honestly, I just didn't have the focus to do that on a weekly basis with everything else that was going on. And to a certain point, before we started using Opus Pro, that was really difficult. Now, Otter.ai was good because I could look back at the episode after I edited it, and I didn't have to rewatch the whole episode, right? I could go and say, okay, at 12 minutes and 11 seconds, we were talking about James Webb Space Telescope and the infrared sensors on there, right? So I could go back, then I could go to the clip, move back, do my job, and I could be more strategic with my editing instead of this kind of like brushing over every, the thing that I learned about editing and getting really good at editing is that you want to do full passes of editing. You don't want to, like what I was doing early in my career, spend all your creative energy editing like the first 5 minutes of your episode. That's 20 minutes, 30 minutes long. And then you've spent hours on that first 5 minutes. And now you've done this high level of editing to 5 minutes worth, and there's still 30 minutes left of it. And you realize how long it's going to take you to do the same job in that first 5 minutes, and it's defeating. There's no doubt about that. But Opus has made it so that I give back so much of my life that was put to editing for clips to then promote that it really is unreal. But opus.pro also has a, if you're interested in trying it out, if you are doing anything online and you're trying to promote it more, you're trying to get some more clips, literally go check it out. I mean, Opus Pro right now, we're talking about $100 for the year, maybe a little bit more than that with the package that I have. Auto.ai, same deal. You're in that $100 range for the year. And then ChatGPT is $20 a month. So when you think about it, the cost of implementing AI as a partner in my podcast versus hiring a human being right now, I have found tools for the specific task that I needed done. And, just like my 3D printing lab, most of my fellow employees are robots. So it's really wild to think that for basically $220 a year, I have full clip editing with plenty of hours of running episodes on a weekly basis, and getting viral clips out. And then also I've got my transcription. I've got a big kind of like a quarterback view, a high level view of what the episode is about and how to talk about it and how to share it. And then with ChatGPT, I've got that little extra thing for those moments where I've lost the creative drive. I've gotten out of the creative zone. It just helps me brainstorm to get back there again and not waste the creative energy doing the menial task of, trying to prop up something to then be ready for creativity. So a huge change that's helped enable my creativity in a way that wasn't possible before 2023. And I, in 2025, couldn't imagine being creative without them now. So it's kind of a big shift in not a lot of time. These tools specifically, I highly recommend it. Now, as far as some concrete numbers, some metrics, right? Let's just go through the tasks that Opus, Otter, and ChatGPT help me with. So I think ChatGPT is less about the amount of time that it saves me and more about just the energy that I don't have to spend doing things like building a template for an episode that for whatever reason my brain just does not want to do. So that's been good, but for ChatGPT, I would love to do more with it, but the unfortunate nature of it not being able to provide sources for everything, and sometimes those sources are just wrong, is going to require more time for me before I'm able to implement Sky, like we were talking about before, in a scientific podcast. I don't want to spend that extra time having to not believe that Sky or the ChatGPT actually gave me the right information. It does have a tendency to provide information, even if it's wrong, because you asked it to provide information. Some would call that lying. It's almost childlike in a way, but I just right now don't have the time for that. So until that gets better, you won't be hearing an AI Sky voice here on the podcast doing like a weekly thing. And until that changes, that will be a thing of the future. Otter.ai has definitely saved me a lot of time. It's become a crucial point in my creative process. It's where I dump the full episode afterwards. That's where I upload it to Otter.ai. After exporting the whole thing, I get up, I get my coffee, I might get some food, but I reset, and in that time, Otter.ai is working in the background, doing that hard work for me, and I'm able to move away and step away and do other things. And to me, that's work stacking, right? And that's a beautiful thing that all of us as human beings should be using. I first learned that with SpaceX and what Elon Musk was doing with all of the businesses that he was building and all the tasks he was doing, that one thing added to the other. And when you have one thing working, you can do other things. For us, that was 3D printing, right? When our 3D printers are running, they are doing work. In some cases, they're making money or helping us make something creative for the podcast. But it's doing work that I don't have to do to free me up to do other work. So Auto.ai makes a lot of sense to me as why we used it. I'd say I've probably saved around 3 to 4 hours a week on episode title generation, topics, and the timestamps in general. And because I shifted to the end of my creative process, I'm not doing that while I'm editing, so my editing has gotten shorter. So basically, Otter has saved me around 4 hours a week, which is huge. And then the king of all of this is Opus Pro. Now, taking the full episode and then going back and cutting up episodes, cutting up clips for social media was taking me a lot of time. And on a week where I could be focused enough and have the energy at the right time to do this while, I'm at the end of my workday, or on the weekend when I finally have some free time to rest, honestly, it's probably a few hours a night, which then basically gets to about 15 hours a week that I was doing, cutting up clips, but more importantly, trying to figure out where I should be cutting the clips, right? Going back, looking at Otter.ai and trying to see, did that clip work? And honestly, most of the time what would happen was I would see something in writing or I would remember something, and then I would go back. This would be about 30 minutes in. I'm starting to get the clip together, and then it's just not what I wanted, or it's going to take more work, or I would waste a lot of creative juices just getting there before I could then be creative on how good is this clip going to be? Does this relay the message that I want? Do I need to add any visuals or anything like that? So yeah, we're talking 15 hours a week that Opus Pro has given me back, and that has been huge, really, really huge. Our output on social media has been more. We're able to schedule posts now, which are huge because it really is definitely on some, like Instagram and LinkedIn and other ones that are really specific to when you post, YouTube Shorts as well. Having the ability to be more of a quarterback in that scenario instead of a front lineman holding back the offense or the defense from the quarterback making the big decisions. Opus Pro has been our biggest companion in this AI tool search. So we're talking basically 19 hours a week, almost a whole day a week that we're saving ourselves. It's taking us less to get started for the week or to get started on the next episode because we've got a brainstorming partner in ChatGPT. So really, to think about how much money was actually spent on the AI tools themselves versus what it returned, I am in a place where that is a huge, huge return. And then if you think about what that costs, right, just on a human level, right? I probably wouldn't pay somebody less than $20 an hour, right? And so if we do how much time has been saved throughout the week, we're talking $380 a week, which, we're talking about 20 grand a year that I'm saving in just time that I really didn't have. And now we're actually making really good headway, and I'm really happy with where we are with the podcast. And more importantly, I'm happy with where I am in my creative process, which is the whole reason why I do this podcast in the first place. So I really can't say enough how important it is when you're thinking about AI, whether you should do it, whether you should, even breach the subject. Let's just talk about some of the reasons why you should. So first, you should use it for the things that you aren't good at. I'm sure plenty of you don't like typing on a computer or writing up a report or things like that. Like there are just tasks that we don't have to do, and if you find the right tool, you should use it. It's good. Now, if you work at a day job, don't go throwing your business into just any AI. That's why I stopped using Otter at work, because it became pretty clear pretty quickly that there are things in there, you're training an AI, right? That's what all of us are doing with all these AIs right now, is we are training them. And it's our time that's being used. So be very smart about what you use it for. In those early days of AI, it was a really good tool, but we all looked around at one point and we were like, we should not be using this. So definitely be careful about it, but use it for the things that you're not good at. That's number one. Number two, we want to make sure that you keep your skills and critical thinking, right? So if there is an AI that you're using or a tool that you're using and it's not allowing you to stay skilled as a worker or as a person, and it's taking away your ability to think critically, stop. Don't use that. That's not a good use of it. And we're already seeing a lot of that in the schools, right? In colleges. How many clips do I have to see on TikTok of students getting caught by their teachers? Or job applications that are being done on AI and people aren't even looking at it. They're not even reviewing, going the next step to look at what it generated. They're just assuming that because it's artificial intelligence, that it's just, I'm going to give it everything. Take it away from me. That's not where AI is today, and that's not how you should treat it today. So if you find yourself going into this, this AI god is saving me, you've lost the plot. Stop. Do not pass go. My goal with AI, more than anything else, is to spend more time being a human being, and it's to enable my creativity with AI. And it's not to generate complacency and to be no longer self-sufficient. I think of the movie WALL-E and how the humans got to at that point. We don't want that. So definitely not what we're looking for. And then finally, I kind of touched on this before, but become the quarterback of your own time and your own effort. That's the thing that today AI offers individuals, right? I'm not talking about humanity per se, because I just don't think there's a lot of people that are going to be willing to do this. But if you're even on the edge and you've been either thinking about hiring somebody or you're trying to get more done and maybe just take something away that's eating up your entire week, start going out there, start testing things. Literally just look up, is there an AI tool for this, or the best AI tools? That's at the very least, if you're starting from bare minimum, you haven't even got into it, do a little bit of homework. That's the best advice I've gotten about it, is do a little homework, look it up. And the crazy thing about AI is it progresses at the speed of computers. So like I saw with opus.pro, it's a totally different application or AI now tool than it was a year ago. And the price hasn't changed. Maybe it went up a little bit, but again, at $120, $140 for the year versus the $20,000 that I probably would have had to pay somebody hourly to do those things, it's a no-brainer. Look for what tools are out there. Pick the ones you think are going to actually help you and make your life better and help you do more things, and get after it. Try it out. We'd love to hear from you. If you found a tool that you really like, email us, todayinspacepodcast@gmail.com. We want to hear from you. DM us on social media, Today in Space Pod on X and Instagram, Today in Space on TikTok, and then, of course, our Facebook page, Today in Space Podcast. And then, like I said, always email us. Feel free to. We love hearing from you. We've talked about AI a lot here on the episode. I think I try to touch on it on a lot of our interviews, especially when we have experts on. But to us, AI in space is going to play a huge role. It has to. It's to have the ability of an AI to look after the life systems of a spacecraft, to monitor the progress of the crew, their health, their tasks, the ship that they're on, but also everything else around it. One day there's going to be an AI that's trained. Maybe it's a conglomeration of a bunch of different AI put together, or it becomes its own thing, but it becomes another crew member, right? There are obviously examples like 2001 Space Odyssey, where HAL obviously becomes a problem. This is definitely not out of the realm of possibility, but having an AI do a lot of the tasks that, say, mission control is doing, right? And as we start doing missions further and further out, that's going to be needed. It's going to be necessary. So that's our thoughts on AI. So I hope that was helpful. There's just so much there that I haven't really talked about yet on the podcast about AI. And I know I've talked to a lot of people in real life about my thoughts on it, their thoughts on it. So yeah, just let us know what you think. I'm fascinated to hear. Thank you for joining us for another episode of Today in Space. I am, as always, your space science podcast host from the East Coast, Alex Giarfanos. And until then, be well, spread love, spread science. We'll see you on the next episode.